The story begins in Manhattan, where money flows like water and family secrets hide behind marble walls. Victoria and Vanessa Harrison were born just 3 minutes apart on a snowy December morning in 1990. Their father, Robert Harrison, was already worth $50 million by then, having built his empire from a single apartment building in Brooklyn. Growing up, the twins were like two sides of the same coin. They shared everything, the same private tutors, the same designer, clothes, even the same dreams about taking over their father's business one day. Their penthouse apartment on Fifth Avenue had 2 identical bedrooms, and visitors often couldn't tell which twin was which until they spoke. Victoria was always the louder one, the first to speak up in meetings, the first to challenge their father's business decisions. She had this fire in her eyes that made people listen when she talked about expanding the company internationally. Even as a teenager, she would stay up late reading about real estate markets in London and Tokyo. Vanessa, on the other hand, was quieter but equally sharp. She preferred to observe first, then speak with careful, measured words that often carried more weight than her sister's passionate speeches. While Victoria dreamed of skyscrapers in foreign cities, Vanessa walked through the streets of New York, noticing the homeless people sleeping in doorways just blocks from their luxury apartment. Their father loved both daughters equally, but in different ways. He saw himself in Victoria's aggressive business instincts, but he also admired Vanessa's compassion, even when he didn't always understand it. Robert Harrison was a self-made man who remembered being poor, and sometimes Vanessa's concern for others reminded him of his own humble beginnings. The twins went to the same private school, dated boys from the same social circles, and even got accepted to the same business program at Columbia University. They planned to graduate together and join Harrison Real Estate as equal partners. Their father had already prepared 2 corner offices on the top floor of his Manhattan headquarters, but success has a way of changing people, and the Harrison family was no exception. Everything started to change during their senior year at Columbia. Victoria had written her thesis on international real estate investment, focusing on emerging markets in Asia and Europe. She spent months researching property laws in different countries and building relationships with overseas investors. Her professors were impressed by her vision and ambition. Vanessa's thesis took a completely different direction. She studied the relationship between urban development and homelessness in New York City. Her research showed how rising property values were pushing low-income families out of their neighborhoods, creating a growing population of people who couldn't afford basic housing. She interviewed dozens of homeless individuals and visited shelters across the city. When they graduated, both twins joined their father's company as planned. But their different perspectives on business began to create tension almost immediately. Victoria wanted to use the company's resources to buy properties in London and expand into European markets. She argued that international expansion would triple their profits within 5 years. Vanessa supported growth, but she believed they had a responsibility to their own community first. She proposed using some of their profits to develop affordable housing projects in Brooklyn and Queens. She even suggested partnering with local nonprofits to help homeless families find permanent housing. Their father found himself caught in the middle. He respected both viewpoints, but the company's board of directors clearly favored Victoria's international expansion plans. They saw bigger profits and faster growth in her proposals. Vanessa's ideas, while admirable, seemed less profitable to investors who only cared about quarterly returns. The tension between the sisters grew worse over the next 2 years. Victoria would come home from business trips to London or Berlin, excited about new opportunities, only to find Vanessa reading reports about rising homelessness in their own city. They stopped sharing meals together, stopped asking about each other's work, stopped being the inseparable team they had been since childhood. Their father noticed the change, but he was getting older and spending less time at the office. He trusted his daughters to work out their differences, believing that their shared love for the family business would eventually bring them back together. Unfortunately, he was wrong. The breaking point came in late 2017, just before Christmas. Victoria had been in Tokyo for 2 weeks, negotiating the purchase of 3 office buildings. The deal would be the company's largest international investment and would establish Harrison Real Estate as a major player in the Asian market. She was proud of her accomplishment and couldn't wait to share the news with her family. But when she returned to New York, she discovered something that shattered her trust in her sister forever. Vanessa had been secretly using company funds to support homeless shelters across the city. Not small amounts. Over the past 6 months, she had quietly transferred nearly $2 million from various business accounts to nonprofit organizations. She had been careful to use money from properties that were performing well, thinking that her actions wouldn't hurt the company's overall financial health. Victoria found out about the transfers when she was reviewing financial reports for the Tokyo deal. The missing money wasn't enough to stop the international expansion, but that wasn't the point. Vanessa had acted without authorization, without discussion, without even telling their father about her plans. The confrontation happened in their father's office on a cold December morning. Victoria had called Vanessa for an emergency meeting, and their father sat between them as Victoria presented the financial evidence. Bank statements, transfer records, emails between Vanessa and shelter directors. Everything was laid out on the mahogany conference table. How could you do this? Victoria's voice was shaking with anger and hurt. We're supposed to be partners. We're supposed to make decisions together. Vanessa didn't deny what she had done. Instead, she tried to explain her reasoning. People are sleeping on the streets while we're buying buildings in Tokyo, she said quietly. I saw an opportunity to help, and I took it. You stole from the company, Victoria shot back. You stole from our family. I used our profits to help people who have nothing, Vanessa replied. Our father built this company from nothing. He would understand. But their father was caught completely off guard. He loved both daughters, but he also knew that business required trust and transparency. Vanessa's actions, however well-intentioned, had violated the basic principles that kept the company running smoothly. The argument lasted for hours. Victoria demanded that Vanessa be removed from all financial decisions and that the money be recovered from the shelters. Vanessa refused to apologize for helping people in need and accused Victoria of caring more about money than human lives. Their father tried to find a compromise, but the damage was already done. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. Victoria felt betrayed by the sister she had shared everything with since birth. Vanessa felt misunderstood and judged for trying to do what she believed was right. Neither sister was willing to back down or admit that the other might have valid points. Within a month, lawyers were involved. Victoria insisted on a formal investigation into all of Vanessa's financial activities. Vanessa hired her own attorney and accused Victoria of trying to push her out of the family business. Their father, heartbroken by seeing his daughters destroy their relationship, tried to mediate but found himself choosing sides despite his best intentions. The final break came in early 2018. Vanessa voluntarily removed herself from day-to-day operations at Harrison Real Estate and moved out of the family penthouse. She bought her own apartment on the opposite side of Central Park and started her own charitable foundation focused on affordable housing and homeless services. Victoria threw herself into international expansion, successfully completing deals in Tokyo, London, and Berlin over the next year. But her success felt hollow without her sister to share it with. She moved into a different penthouse, hired new staff, and built a social circle that never mentioned Vanessa's name. For 5 long years, the Harrison twins lived just 15 blocks apart, but might as well have been on different planets. They attended different charity events, belonged to different clubs, and carefully avoided any situation where they might accidentally encounter each other. Family holidays became awkward affairs, where relatives had to choose which sister to invite, since both refused to attend the same gathering. Their father's health began to decline, and he often spoke about his regret over not finding a way to reconcile his daughters. But pride and hurt feelings had built walls between Victoria and Vanessa that seemed impossible to tear down. Both sisters were successful in their own right, but neither was truly happy. Neither twin knew that their lives were about to change forever, thanks to a young man who believed that family was worth fighting for no matter the personal cost. 5 years had passed since the Harrison twins last spoke to each other. Victoria had transformed her side of the family business into a global empire with properties spanning 3 continents. But success came with a price. Managing international operations required perfect organization, and Victoria had gone through 7 household managers in just 2 years. Some quit because they couldn't handle her demanding schedule. Others left because they felt uncomfortable with her cold, business-like approach to everything, even personal matters. Victoria had learned to keep people at arm's length, never allowing anyone to get close enough to disappoint her the way her sister had. By early 2023, Victoria was exhausted from constantly training new staff. She needed someone who could not only manage her household, but also understand the complexities of running a business empire. Her assistant posted the job opening with very specific requirements: college degree, business experience, discretion, and the ability to work under pressure. The applications came from all over the country, but one stood out immediately. Cameron Williams had graduated from Georgia Tech with honors, despite working 2 jobs throughout college. His resume showed impressive organizational skills and glowing recommendations from previous employers. What caught Victoria's attention most was his personal story. Cameron had grown up in Atlanta as the oldest of 4 children. When his parents died in a car accident during his sophomore year of college, he could have dropped out to take care of his younger siblings. Instead, he found a way to do both. He worked nights at a hotel and weekends at a catering company while maintaining a perfect grade point average and somehow managing to raise 3 teenagers. His brothers and sister were now all in college themselves, supported by scholarships Cameron had helped them apply for. The youngest was studying medicine, following in their father's footsteps. Cameron's dedication to his family reminded Victoria of her own relationship with Vanessa back when they supported each other through everything. During the video interview, Victoria was impressed by Cameron's calm confidence and genuine warmth. He answered her tough questions with thoughtful responses and asked intelligent questions about the role. More importantly, he seemed unfazed by her wealth and reputation, treating her like a person rather than a celebrity businesswoman. "I've managed complex situations before," Cameron told her during their second interview. "Taking care of family teaches you patience, organization, and how to solve problems quickly. I think those skills would translate well to managing your household and schedule." Victoria hired him on the spot. Cameron moved into the staff quarters of Victoria's penthouse in March 2023. The apartment was larger than most people's entire homes, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park and rooms that seemed to go on forever. But despite all the luxury, Cameron noticed something sad about the place. It felt empty, almost lonely. Victoria's daily routine was rigid and precise. She woke up at 5:30 every morning, spent an hour reviewing international market reports, had breakfast alone while making phone calls to her London office, and then worked until late evening. She rarely had personal visitors, never attended social events unless they were business-related, and spent most evenings alone in her home office. Cameron quickly proved himself invaluable. He managed Victoria's staff of 12 people with ease, coordinating schedules, organizing travel arrangements, and somehow anticipating her needs before she even voiced them. Within a month, Victoria's life ran more smoothly than it had in years. But Cameron was observant, and he began to notice things that worried him. Victoria never talked about friends or family. Her penthouse had no personal photos except old pictures of her with an older man who looked like her father. She worked 7 days a week and seemed to have no hobbies or interests outside of business. Most telling of all, Victoria became noticeably sad around holidays and family occasions. During Easter weekend, when most of her business contacts were spending time with their families, Victoria wandered around her empty penthouse looking lost. Cameron found her standing by the windows, staring across Central Park with tears in her eyes. "Is everything all right, Miss Harrison?" Cameron asked gently. Victoria quickly wiped her eyes and put on her usual professional mask. "Just tired from the London negotiations," she said, but Cameron could tell there was more to the story. Over the following weeks, Cameron began to piece together clues about Victoria's past. The older man in the photos was clearly her father. Cameron found his obituary from 2 years earlier while organizing Victoria's personal papers. Robert Harrison had been a successful businessman who built his empire from nothing, just like Cameron's own father had built his medical practice in Atlanta. But there was something else. Cameron discovered old family photos hidden in a drawer in Victoria's office. Pictures of Victoria with another woman who looked exactly like her. Same face, same smile, sometimes wearing matching outfits. The photos showed two people who were clearly very close, laughing together, hugging, obviously happy in each other's company. Cameron realized Victoria had a twin sister. The discovery explained so much about Victoria's behavior. Her loneliness, her reluctance to trust people, her sadness during family holidays. It all made sense if she had lost someone who had been incredibly important to her. Cameron knew from his own experience how devastating it could be to lose family members, but his parents had died in an accident. Victoria's situation seemed different, more complicated. Cameron began to pay closer attention to Victoria's conversations and habits. He noticed that she avoided certain parts of Manhattan, always taking routes that kept her away from the Upper West Side. She never mentioned having siblings, but sometimes she would start to say "we" when talking about business decisions, then quickly correct herself to "I." One evening in late April, Cameron was organizing Victoria's schedule when she mentioned a charity gala she was considering attending. As she described the event, her voice became wistful, almost sad. "It's for homeless youth," Victoria said. "Important cause. My father—" She stopped herself, then continued more carefully. "I've always believed in helping young people who don't have family support." Cameron saw his opportunity. "That sounds like something close to your heart," he said carefully. "Do you have personal experience with family challenges?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then, perhaps because Cameron's own family story had touched her, she opened up just a little bit. "I had a sister once," she said quietly. "We were very close growing up. She cared about helping people, maybe too much. We had different ideas about how to run the family business, and those differences became irreconcilable." Cameron felt his heart break a little for Victoria. He knew what it was like to worry about siblings, to make sacrifices for family, to feel responsible for people you loved. But he also knew that family disagreements, no matter how serious, didn't have to be permanent. "Do you miss her?" Cameron asked gently. Victoria looked surprised by the direct question. Most people in her life were too intimidated or too polite to ask about personal matters. But Cameron's genuine concern was obvious, and his own family struggles gave him credibility. "Every day," Victoria admitted. "But too much has happened. Too many hurtful words. Too much pride on both sides. Some bridges can't be rebuilt." Cameron disagreed, but he was smart enough not to say so directly. Instead, he filed the information away and began to think. His own siblings had fought over money, over responsibilities, over their parents' medical decisions before they died. But they had found ways to forgive each other because they realized that family was more important than being right. Over the next few weeks, Cameron began to research Victoria's sister. It wasn't hard to find information about Vanessa Harrison. She was almost as well known as Victoria, but for different reasons. While Victoria was famous for international business deals, Vanessa was known for her charitable work and affordable housing initiatives. Cameron discovered that Vanessa lived just 15 blocks away from Victoria. She had her own successful foundation and had been working for years to address homelessness and housing inequality in New York City. The irony wasn't lost on Cameron. Both sisters were successful, both were making positive impacts on the world, but they were doing it separately instead of together. Most interesting of all, Cameron learned that Vanessa's foundation was hosting the same charity gala that Victoria was considering attending. The event was focused on providing scholarships and housing support for homeless youth, exactly the kind of cause that both sisters seemed to care about. Cameron began to form an idea, a plan so risky it could cost him his job and destroy his reputation. But his own experience with family had taught him that some things were worth fighting for, even when the odds seemed impossible. He thought about his own siblings, how they had supported each other through their parents' death and the difficult years that followed. He thought about Victoria's obvious loneliness and pain, and he imagined that Vanessa might be feeling the same way. Cameron made a decision that would change everything. He was going to find a way to bring the Harrison twins back together. No matter what it cost him personally. Family was too important to let pride and old hurts destroy it forever. Cameron knew he was about to cross a line that could destroy his career and his reputation, but watching Victoria pretend she wasn't heartbroken every single day was becoming unbearable. He had grown up believing that family was everything, and seeing two sisters throw away their relationship over business disagreements went against everything he valued. The plan started forming in his mind during a quiet Sunday afternoon in May. Victoria was in her office reviewing contracts, as usual, when Cameron noticed her staring at an old photo she had pulled from her desk drawer. It was a picture of her and Vanessa at their college graduation, both smiling and holding their diplomas together. Victoria didn't know Cameron could see her, and the pain on her face was heartbreaking. That evening, Cameron made his first move. He called in sick the next day, something he had never done since starting work for Victoria. Instead of staying home, he took the subway across Manhattan to the Upper West Side, where he had discovered Vanessa Harrison lived. Finding her building was easy enough. The Harrison Foundation's address was public information. But getting inside to meet Vanessa would be much more challenging. Cameron knew he couldn't just walk up to her apartment and knock on the door. He needed a legitimate reason to be there, something that wouldn't immediately raise suspicions. Cameron spent the morning sitting in a coffee shop across the street from Vanessa's building, watching people come and go. Around 11 o'clock, he saw a woman who looked exactly like Victoria exit the building and walk toward the park. She was dressed more casually than Victoria ever did, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of business suits. But the resemblance was unmistakable. Same height, same hair, same confident way of walking. Cameron followed her at a distance, his heart pounding with nervousness. Vanessa walked through Central Park for about 20 minutes, then stopped at a small playground, where she sat on a bench and watched children play. She seemed relaxed and peaceful, completely different from Victoria's constant tension and urgency. After working up his courage, Cameron approached the bench and sat down a respectful distance away. He waited a few minutes, then turned toward Vanessa with what he hoped looked like casual curiosity. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I don't mean to bother you, but you look familiar. Are you involved with any charitable organizations in the city?" Vanessa looked at him with mild surprise. "I run the Harrison Foundation," she said carefully. "We work on affordable housing and homeless services. Why do you ask?" Cameron took a deep breath. This was his moment to either succeed or fail completely. "My name is Cameron Williams. I work as a household manager for your sister, Victoria." The change in Vanessa's expression was immediate and dramatic. Her face went pale, and she started to stand up as if she was going to leave. Cameron quickly raised his hand to stop her. "Please, just give me 5 minutes," he said urgently. "I know this is unexpected, but I have something important to tell you about Victoria, and I think you need to hear it." Vanessa sat back down slowly, her eyes wary. "Victoria sent you to find me?" "No," Cameron said firmly. "She has no idea I'm here." If she knew what I was doing, she would fire me immediately. I'm here because I care about both of you, even though I've never met you before today." For the next hour, Cameron told Vanessa everything he had observed about Victoria over the past 2 months. He described her loneliness, her sadness during holidays, the way she sometimes started to say "we" when talking about business decisions. He told her about finding the hidden family photos and seeing Victoria cry while looking across the park toward the Upper West Side. "She misses you," Cameron said simply. "She's successful, she's wealthy, she has everything money can buy, but she's not happy. I don't think she's been truly happy since you two stopped talking." Vanessa listened without interrupting, occasionally wiping tears from her eyes. When Cameron finished, she was quiet for a long time, staring at the playground where children were laughing and playing together. "I miss her too," Vanessa finally admitted, "every single day. But so much happened between us, so many hurtful things were said. I don't even know how we would begin to fix it." Cameron leaned forward, his voice earnest and passionate. "I lost my parents when I was in college," he said. "Suddenly, without warning, they were just gone. I would give anything for one more conversation with them, one more chance to tell them I loved them. You and Victoria still have that chance. You're both alive, you both live in the same city, and you both still care about each other. Don't waste that opportunity." Vanessa was crying openly now. "What do you think we should do?" Cameron had been hoping she would ask that question. He pulled out his phone and showed her information about the upcoming charity gala for homeless youth. "Both of you care about helping people," he said. "This event is exactly the kind of cause you both support. What if you both happened to attend?" "She would never agree to meet with me," Vanessa said, shaking her head. "Her pride won't let her make the first move." "Then we don't tell her you'll be there," Cameron said, "and we don't tell you exactly when she'll arrive. You both just happen to show up at the same event, for the same good cause. What happens after that is up to you." Vanessa stared at Cameron for a long moment. "You're asking me to trust you, someone I just met, with the most important relationship in my life." "Yes," Cameron said honestly. "And I'm asking you to take a risk that might not work. But I'm also offering you a chance to get your sister back." It took Vanessa 3 more meetings over the following week to agree to the plan. Each time they met, Cameron shared more stories about Victoria's daily life, her work habits, her obvious loneliness. He also told Vanessa about his own family, how his siblings had disagreements after their parents died, but how they had learned to forgive each other because they realized that holding grudges only made their loss more painful. "My youngest brother and I had a terrible fight about money," Cameron told her during their 3rd meeting. "We didn't speak for 6 months. 6 months of being angry and stubborn while our parents were already gone and we were wasting time we could have been supporting each other. When we finally made up, we both realized how stupid we had been." Vanessa began to open up about her side of the story. She explained that taking money from the company hadn't been about stealing or betraying Victoria. She had seen an opportunity to help people who desperately needed assistance, and she had acted impulsively because she was afraid that asking permission would result in endless discussions and delays. "People were sleeping on the streets while we debated international expansion strategies," Vanessa said. "I knew it was wrong to act without discussing it first, but I also couldn't stand by and do nothing while I had the power to help." Cameron understood both sides of the conflict. Victoria felt betrayed because trust was essential in business relationships. Vanessa felt misunderstood because her intentions had been good, even if her methods were questionable. Both sisters had valid points, but they had been too hurt and proud to admit it. The most challenging part of Cameron's plan was coordinating the logistics without arousing suspicion. He had to convince Victoria to attend the gala without making it seem like he was pushing her toward it. He also had to work with Vanessa's assistant, Rebecca, who had been with Vanessa for 3 years and was also concerned about her employer's isolation. Rebecca was initially skeptical of Cameron's plan. "What if this backfires?" she asked during a secret meeting at a downtown restaurant. "What if they see each other and it just makes things worse?" "Then at least they'll know they tried," Cameron replied. Right now, they're both living with regret and wondering, what if? Even if the reunion doesn't work perfectly, they'll have closure. Rebecca agreed to help, but only after making Cameron promise that if the plan failed, he would take full responsibility and not involve her in any consequences. Cameron agreed immediately. He was willing to sacrifice his job and his reputation if it meant giving the Harrison twins a chance to heal their relationship. The final piece of the puzzle was timing. The gala was scheduled for a Saturday evening in early June. Cameron arranged for Victoria's schedule to be clear that day, suggesting that attending the event would be good for her public image and beneficial for business networking. Vanessa, meanwhile, had already planned to attend because the cause was closely aligned with her foundation's mission. As the day approached, Cameron felt increasingly nervous. He had never attempted anything this risky or complicated. If his plan worked, two sisters would be reunited, and his own faith in the power of family would be vindicated. If it failed, he would probably lose his job and potentially face legal consequences for manipulating his employer. But Cameron had learned from his own family experiences that some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the personal cost. The morning of June 10th arrived with perfect weather, clear skies and warm sunshine that seemed to promise good things ahead. But Cameron woke up feeling like his stomach was full of butterflies. Today was the day his carefully planned reunion would either succeed brilliantly or fail spectacularly. Victoria was unusually relaxed that morning, which made Cameron even more nervous. She had cleared her entire Saturday for the first time in months, planning to spend the afternoon preparing for the charity gala. She seemed almost excited about the event, mentioning how meaningful it was to support homeless youth and how her father would have approved of the cause. "I've been thinking about this event all week," Victoria told Cameron over breakfast. "Something about it feels important, like I'm supposed to be there tonight." Cameron tried to keep his expression neutral, but inside he was panicking. What if Victoria suspected something? What if she had somehow discovered his secret meetings with Vanessa? He forced himself to respond calmly. "It's a wonderful cause," he said. "I'm sure you'll enjoy connecting with other people who care about helping young people in need." Meanwhile, across town, Vanessa was having similar thoughts. She had told Rebecca that she felt strangely optimistic about the evening, as if something significant was going to happen. Rebecca, who knew exactly what was planned, had to bite her tongue to keep from revealing the secret. "Just be open to whatever the evening brings," Rebecca advised, which was probably the most honest thing she could say without giving away the surprise. Cameron spent the afternoon making final preparations. He had already confirmed that both sisters would be attending, but timing was crucial. Victoria was scheduled to arrive at 7:30, while Vanessa planned to come at 8 o'clock. Cameron hoped that would give Victoria enough time to settle in and feel comfortable before the reunion happened. The Plaza Hotel ballroom looked magnificent that evening. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over elegantly dressed guests, and the walls were decorated with photos and stories of young people who had been helped by various homeless services programs. The atmosphere was sophisticated but welcoming, exactly the kind of event both Harrison twins would normally enjoy. Victoria arrived precisely on time, wearing a stunning navy blue dress that Cameron had helped her select. She looked beautiful and confident, but Cameron could see the slight tension in her shoulders that always appeared when she was in social situations. He watched from across the room as she began making conversation with other guests, discussing business opportunities and charitable initiatives. At 8:15, Cameron spotted Vanessa entering the ballroom. She was wearing a simple but elegant black dress, and she moved through the crowd with the same quiet confidence that Cameron had observed during their secret meetings. She stopped to examine the photo displays, clearly moved by the stories of young people who had overcome homelessness to build successful lives. Cameron's heart was racing as he watched both sisters navigate the same room, unaware of each other's presence. They were only about 50 feet apart, but the crowd and the room's layout kept them from seeing each other. Cameron began to worry that his plan wouldn't work. What if they left without ever crossing paths? Then, at exactly 8:37, it happened. Victoria was standing near the silent auction tables, examining donated items and making bids on several pieces. She had just written down a particularly generous bid for a week-long vacation package when she looked up and froze completely. Across the room, near the photo displays, stood a woman who looked exactly like her. Vanessa was reading a story about a teenage girl who had lived in her car for 6 months before finding stable housing through a nonprofit program. The story reminded her of why she had started her foundation in the first place. She was wiping tears from her eyes when she sensed someone staring at her. She looked up and saw Victoria standing motionless by the auction tables. For what felt like an eternity, the two sisters simply stared at each other across the crowded ballroom. The noise and movement of other guests seemed to fade away as 5 years of separation, hurt, and longing crystallized into a single moment of recognition. Victoria was the first to move. She walked slowly across the room, weaving between other guests who were completely unaware of the drama unfolding around them. Vanessa stayed where she was, her hands trembling slightly as her sister approached. "Hello, Vanessa," Victoria said quietly when she reached the photo display. "Hello, Victoria," Vanessa replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They stood there awkwardly for a moment, two successful, powerful women reduced to nervous teenagers by the intensity of their emotions. Victoria noticed that Vanessa looked older, more mature, but her eyes still held the same kindness that Victoria remembered from their childhood. Vanessa saw that Victoria carried herself with even more confidence than before, but there was a sadness in her expression that hadn't been there years ago. "You look well," Victoria said, struggling to find the right words. "So do you," Vanessa replied. "I heard about the Tokyo expansion. Congratulations." "Thank you. I heard about your foundation's work with affordable housing. It's impressive." Their conversation was formal and polite, the way strangers might talk at a business networking event. But underneath the careful words, both sisters were fighting back tears and struggling with emotions they had buried for years. Victoria gestured toward the photo displays. "This is important work," she said, "helping young people who don't have family support." "It's something I care deeply about," Vanessa replied. "I know what it's like to feel alone, even when you're surrounded by people." The words hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning that went far beyond the charity event. Victoria understood that Vanessa was talking about more than homeless youth. She was talking about their own relationship, about how they had both been alone for 5 years despite living in the same city. "Vanessa, Victoria started to say something, then stopped. There was too much to explain. Too many years of hurt and misunderstanding to address in a crowded ballroom. "I know," Vanessa said softly. "I feel the same way." They continued talking. For the next hour, gradually moving from polite small talk to more personal topics. Victoria told Vanessa about her international business successes, but also admitted how lonely she had been. Vanessa shared stories about the families her foundation had helped, but also talked about how she missed having someone to share her accomplishments with. "I think about you every day," Vanessa finally said, tears streaming down her face. "I think about what I should have done differently, what I should have said to make you understand." "I think about you too," Victoria replied, her own voice breaking with emotion. "I was so angry, but I was also hurt and scared. I felt like I couldn't trust you anymore, and trust was all we had." "I never meant to betray you," Vanessa said. "I just saw people suffering, and I had the power to help them." I should have talked to you first, should have found a way to make you understand. And I should have tried to see your perspective, Victoria admitted. You were doing what you thought was right, and I punished you for caring about other people. The conversation was interrupted when Rebecca approached them nervously. Excuse me, she said to Victoria. I'm Rebecca, Vanessa's assistant. I hope you don't mind, but I need to tell you something important. Victoria looked confused but nodded, for Rebecca to continue. Cameron arranged for you both to be here tonight, Rebecca said quickly. He met with Vanessa several times over the past month because he was worried about how lonely you seemed. He risked his job to try to bring you two back together. Victoria's expression changed from confusion to shock to something that might have been anger. Cameron did what? He loves you like family, Vanessa said quickly, seeing Victoria's reaction. He told me stories about how sad you were, how you missed having someone to share your life with. He was just trying to help. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Cameron had manipulated her schedule, lied about his activities, and orchestrated this entire evening without her knowledge or permission. By any reasonable standard, his actions were grounds for immediate termination. But Victoria also realized that Cameron had done something no one else in her life had been brave enough to attempt. He had risked everything to try to heal the most important relationship she had ever had. Where is he? Victoria asked. Rebecca pointed across the room, where Cameron was standing by himself near the exit, clearly ready to leave quickly if things went badly. Victoria walked over to him, with Vanessa following close behind. Cameron, Victoria said when she reached him. He turned around, his face pale with nervousness. Miss Harrison, I can explain. You manipulated my schedule, Victoria said sternly. You lied to me about your activities. You met secretly with my sister without my knowledge or permission. Yes, Cameron said quietly. I did all of those things. You risked your job and your reputation, Victoria continued. You interfered in personal matters that were none of your business. Yes, Cameron repeated, looking like he expected to be fired immediately. Victoria stared at him for a moment, then did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She hugged him. Thank you, she whispered, tears streaming down her face.